name is Dr.Misati. I'm a public health specialist, behavior change expert, certified life coach, relationships counselor, and parenting coach. I'm a director of Effective Parenting Company Limited. We help people deal with their past hurt so that they can learn to manage their feelings, handle conflict, clarify life goals as they lead, so that they can lead effective lives as they enjoy fulfilling relationships. Can trauma change an individual? Yes, indeed, trauma can change an individual, especially when it's chronic or complicated trauma, or when the effect is on a child. Research shows that 90% of an individual's character is formed by the time they are 7 years. So what that means is that children are vulnerable, they are dependable, and they are malleable. So they are shaped by the external circumstances. So trauma has been shown to cause multiple personality disorder and even borderline personality disorder. And this is what happens when an individual experiences a traumatic event. They have what is called a trauma response. This trauma response is meant to be a survival instinct, because ideally we are supposed to face traumatic events once in a while. Again, I will give the example of coming face to face with a lion. Many of us will live our lives never having come face to face with a lion. However, when somebody is exposed to trauma on a daily basis, that is like the lion is coming home every day, particularly when the trauma is in the home, because a lot of trauma happens in the home. So what that means is that whatever was supposed to be a survival response becomes an individual's default setting. So there are 4 main responses that have been documented to trauma that ultimately will now shape an individual's character if they're exposed to chronic or complicated trauma. The first response is called the fight response, whereby somebody becomes aggressive and they want to hit back. So you will find when somebody has gone through trauma and they have the fight response, that over time has become their default setting. And how does it become their default setting? Research shows that when you react or you respond a certain way, more of reacting, for 21 days, it becomes a habit. However, if it goes on for 63 days, there is automatization. It becomes automatic. You find yourself doing it. Sort of like the way you find yourself taking your toothbrush, going to brush, because you have been doing it every day. Or you get home, you take a glass of water. It's almost automatic. You don't sit down thinking, do I drink the water? So you will find after 63 days and somebody has been responding in a certain way, this now becomes automatic. By the time you do this for 100 days, it now becomes your lifestyle. And lifestyle becomes the destiny of somebody. So if a child has grown through trauma, and why am I saying child? I'm saying child because, as I said, children are dependable, they are malleable, and they are dependent. And they are actually they are vulnerable to the external circumstances, okay? So you will find an individual becomes aggressive, not because really that is their personality, but it's because of having been a traumatic environment. Now, the other response is the flight response. This is whereby we find somebody runs away, they flee. And how does it manifest in an adult? These are people who cope by getting into addictions, by getting into work. So workaholism, alcoholism, they get addicted to religion, or they get addicted to shopping, or even to food. So that is the flight response to trauma. So we have the freeze response. And the freeze response is whereby, think of like when an animal hibernates, or an animal behaves like it's dead because of trauma. And so certain individuals respond to trauma by freezing. And how does it manifest as they grow, as they develop? These are people who adopt a victim mentality. They're always complaining, the way things are not working well for them, the government is not doing this, the church is not doing this, the relatives are not doing this for them, and this is how the freeze response individuals respond. And because they are chronic complainers, they end up sabotaging their relationships, because anybody gets worn out by living with such a person. So the 4th trauma response is the fawn response. Many times, the person who is exhibiting the fawn response appears to be a very likable person. This is a person who is out to people please. They have very weak boundaries. They struggle with saying no. And how does the fawn response develop? It develops whereby you find definitely there's a power dynamic. The abuser, the person abusing the individual, most likely, let's say it's a parent, because a lot of trauma happens at home, and because the child has got nowhere to go, because most likely the family, they are secrets. You are told the secrets of this house remain in this house. So the child strives to please the parent who is abusing them. So they will be the best one, the most obedient, doing everything just right. And unfortunately, this shapes the way they respond ordinarily to life. So when they go out there, they are easily influenced by peer pressure. Many times you hear parents come to me as a coach, as a parenting coach, and they tell me, my child was very obedient, very responsible, they performed very well, they went to this very good school, and then in that school, they were influenced by peers. This is because this individual was exhibiting a fawn response. Many times they will get attracted or get into relationship with abusers or controlling people because they easily fold themselves into shapes that can fit into other people. So you find they are struggling. They carry a lot of stress, a lot of pain, because for them, they don't know themselves. Wherever they go, it's like the way one of the characteristics of water, it takes the shape of the container. So these people who are exhibiting the fawn trauma response, they fit into the shape of whoever. So they end up having a lot of struggles, illnesses, high blood pressure, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, because they cannot say no to anything. And so this is the fawn response. This is important, particularly for parents watching today, because as a parent, sometimes I've had parents saying they are living in an abusive, toxic environment for the sake of the children. It's not for the sake of the children. It ends up actually damaging children because they end up responding in a trauma response: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So they have these characteristics or responses that are meant to be trauma response. When there is trauma, for them now it becomes their default setting. And it becomes very difficult to cope even in a relationship. Actually, this is one of the major causes of self-sabotage. People sabotage their own relationships because it becomes very difficult for others to live with an individual who's always in survival mode, because this is actually survival mode. I want to give an example of the communities that are mainly pastoralists, the ones that, we call them warring communities. And one of the people I can think of is my grandfather. My grandfather was a strong, handsome man, and he did a lot of herding. So anytime he would go with the animals to go graze the animals in the bushes, when he hears something like the crackling of the leaves or some footsteps, my grandfather would pick a stone and want to throw, because he was on survival mode, because he was used to being, in the forest that was dangerous with animals. So think of it that way, that you are relating with somebody who is in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. It ends up exhausting the person who is relating with them, and so that leads to sabotage, because you cannot either live with this person, or they themselves actually, you find that over time they will even flee from the relationship because they are not used to things being rosy, things being calm, things being quiet. They are used to fighting. So they'll always be in a fight mode. In case you notice that you need help, you may have gone through a traumatic experience, or as I have spoken, you feel you can identify with some of the things, leave the comment below. We will get back to you. Please feel free to share this video to other people so that it can help. Sharing is caring. Let's have a healed community. That way we can enjoy healthy and fulfilling relationships with everybody. I normally say, I'm not okay until the other person is okay. So even if you're okay and the other person is not okay, we are not okay. So please leave a comment. We will get back to you. We will be glad to be of help to you.